Hey everybody, how's it going? It's after work in the shop. Felt a little compelled to make this video. It's transfer talk, porting talk, the truth about porting, friends. There's a million different ways to port a two-stroke. I want to get to the actual meat and potatoes. I get so many questions. One thing I can say, you're never done learning with two-strokes. They are such a simple machine, but that makes them complex to modify. There's so many different ways to build a two-stroke. But I want to talk about what I've learned about two-strokes. I've had this channel for 3 years. You guys can see I am constantly playing with different saws, different ideas, different bores and strokes, different brands. I want to learn all there is to learn about two-stroke porting. And believe me, I got a lot of stuff to learn. I've learned a ton, but I'm constantly upping my game. Okay? One of the original things I did on this channel is I made this cutaway. This cutaway was as much for me as it was for you guys. I wanted to show how a two-stroke works, but also I could take this cutaway and look at it at any time and go, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay? Let's have a look at this cutaway. Let's talk about transfer timing. Why I'm a long blowdown guy. Now remember, friends, I'm an air movement guy. I move air for a living, not just with my yapper. I do like to flop, you guys know that. But I move air for a living. What I do, I build ductwork, I design it, install it, service it. I've been doing that my whole adult life. I move air for a living. So I understand how air reacts and how to move air. But the air I move is slow air. This is fast air. You guys have to remember, there's so much going on. Just think about the RPM that your chainsaw runs at. Think about it. Do the math. If your chainsaw is running at 13,000 RPM, how many times a second is that piston going up and down? Hundreds. Okay? And if you want to go further in, calculate your port timing. Now, friends, the Two-Stroke Tuner's Handbook, written by Jennings, it's available online. You can download it. I suggest that you read that. There is a lot of good stuff in there, good ideas and thoughts about two-stroke tuning, and also how it relates to motorcycles, motocross bikes. Again, friends, a motocross bike, a short track motocross bike will typically have crank stuffers. Why? Smaller case capacity will give you a broader range of torque. They got to be able to get out of the hole, get onto the pipe, and onto the next gear. A longer motocross engine, like a supercross engine that's doing a long track, often those will have higher case capacity. Why? Because they're running at a higher RPM. There's basics to how these engines work. And the more you can understand about how a two-stroke works, the better you can modify one. Let's look at the cutaway again. Also, friends, I got a snowmobile cylinder. Let's look at a snowmobile cylinder and how it relates to a chainsaw cylinder. And again, let's look at some of my work and try and understand why I do what I do. But let's look at this cutaway again. I'm going to bring you guys in close. I've been watching Harvey for years, the Iron Horse. He's a friend of mine. He's an old timer. He's been at this a long time. And one thing about Harvey is he's taught me a lot of little moves and tricks, but he's never rammed them down my throat. He'll say, well, you could try this or you could try that. And I've tried a lot of his tricks, friends, and they're quite interesting, and often I get results. And if I don't, often it's because I didn't do them right, you see? So that's another thing. Everybody's porting is going to react differently because everybody grinds different, okay? Now, friends, when you first start porting, what do you want to learn? Timing. I need to know the timing numbers. I get that question all the time. Tin Man, I have this saw. What's a good set of numbers for it? Well, I could rattle numbers off my head, but that would only be the first page of a 20-page book. You know, what if I say a certain timing numbers, but I don't tell you to do this to the transfers? Again, massive. Okay. If I don't tell you that and you don't shape your transfers the same as mine, bet you your saw won't run the same as mine, and then maybe you say, oh, those numbers were no good. So I rarely ask anybody timing numbers. I want to see port shapes more than anything. Timing numbers. And again, Harvey's building a stock timing number 372. He did shape the sides of the piston a little bit, which will affect the transfer timing, but the intake and exhaust are stock on that saw, and it's pretty interesting. Bet you that saw is going to run. Okay, so friends, let's put the light on here. Here's our two-stroke cutaway, okay? This is the direction it spins. Piston goes up, intake opens, fuel and air come in. They get mixed around. They end up in the lower transfer. Also go through the windows. And again, notice this saw. The windows are slightly blocked by the transfer size. Interesting. Okay, fuel gets compressed. Upper transfers open right here. Fuel comes out. Okay, fuel comes out. Goes this way, bounces, swirls around. Some of it comes out the exhaust port. Piston's going up, closes the exhaust port. Notice the transfers close, then the exhaust port closes, up it goes. It fires just before top dead center. Could be 20, 25, 30 degrees. Just before top dead center, bang. It goes down. Now you're under your power stroke. It's pushing down on the piston. Exhaust cracks. Fuel and air come out, and it all starts over again, okay? Let's talk about transfer timing. Short blowdown, long blowdown. So think about it, friends. When your piston's going down, Harvey mentioned this on his last video, and I think this is the stuff that I think a lot of guys don't think about. I never used to think about this. I think about it all the time now. Okay, so your piston's going up, right? Your piston goes up, and on the way down, when it's done drawing fuel and air, okay, your transfer's open. The longer amount of time between when that closes and your transfer's open, the more it squeezes this bottom end, right? It should build more pressure when you do that, should it not? Put your thumb on the end of a syringe and squeeze it. The more you push, the more pressure comes out of there, okay? But also, we think about that stuff, but look, on the way up, this piston's going up, it should be creating suction, correct? Well, it only should create suction after the transfers close, should it not? So really, you're only creating suction from here to there, okay? Notice that? Transfer's open, right? There's no suction being created when your transfers are open until they close. Then from there to there, you have suction. Okay, more suction, more vacuum should pull on the carburetor harder. Also, in my thoughts, more vacuum should also make the saw wake up quicker when you touch the throttle, should it not? If it was slow moving air, the slower the intake air moves, the slower your saw should rev up, should it not? Think about this, right? This is just an air pump. Now, let's take a marker and let's pretend we raised our upper transfers. Say this has 20 degrees of blowdown, and now it has, okay, I'm just going to draw across with a block marker. Let's say we raised our transfers to 15 degrees, say, right? 15 degrees. And you guys can play with transfer timing. I've done it. I don't run the same timing on all saws. Some saws like a little longer blowdown, some like a little shorter. I tend to run shorter blowdown in my smaller saws. We'll say 60 cc's, shorter blowdown. Okay, let's pretend that that black marker now represents where our transfers are closing. Okay, now they close there. Now, think about it. We're only building suction from there to there. Would that not lessen the suction pressure? Because you're only traveling, right? There's the stock transfer. Let's mark with our marker, okay? Okay, I put a little mark at the bottom, okay? Let's move that transfer up now it goes there. If you raise your exhaust port that much, would that lessen compression on the top? Why would that not lessen suction on the bottom? In my mind. And again, friends, maybe I'm wrong, but this is how I look at these things. Okay? So what I've learned is you can't just look at what's going on the top of the piston. You also got to look at what's going on the bottom. Now, the piston, you guys know that I'll go in and open these windows. I'll do some shaping in here. I'll lighten this piston. Well, so now you got more suction, right? But also you want more flow. Well, if you don't flow your lower transfers, you're stifling airflow. And again, think about it, friends. Is more air going to flow through these windows when they're half blocked, like they are stock in this 288, or are they going to flow through here? My thoughts are they're going to flow a lot better like that than like this. There's a stock one. And I've showed you guys this before, but I like to get people thinking about how these work. You can agree or disagree with me, but now the other thing is, in my mind, where does a chainsaw run? A chainsaw runs at higher RPM, right? Fast air. A slow running chainsaw is 8,000, 7, 6. Say you want your saw to run between 8 and 10,000. That's where we cut with them. You're either pegged, full open, throttles all the way to the stop, or it's closed generally. Well, to me, if I'm going to make my power at the top end, which I would on a chainsaw, why would I have more case capacity? So that's why I do what I do, friends. Next thing, intake. If you really hog out an intake, and I've done it, friends, especially on a short stroke saw, you can really, that's why I like porting 266s. They're not easy to port, and you can really mess one up by, say, hogging out the intake. Why? Because the stroke is so short. You have less suction, less pumping ability per stroke. Okay, so again, if you really hog out that intake and you raise your transfers, you now have an intake that opens sooner, right? Let's go back. Again, friends, let's go back to the Cutaway. Okay, this is a stock intake. It opens there. What if we hog it out and lower it to here, right? So now again, we have shortened our blowdown. So you have suction from here. Okay, we've shortened our blowdown. So we don't get suction until those transfers closed. I don't know how you could, right? You're not under vacuum because the door's open, right? So you have suction from here to here. And then there's your new intake floor. So now you've shortened your suction time even more. To me, it's like slowing down a fan. The faster a fan goes, to a point, right? Depending on the design of the blades. But the faster a fan spins, the more air it moves. So to me, I want longer blowdown. It creates more torque, more suction. It has to, because this is a syringe, right? The longer this is under suction and the later it opens, the more suction you're going to get. And then with a smaller intake, you'll create more vacuum. And again, friends, this is just my thinking. I want you guys to think about this stuff, though. Just like flywheels, okay? What's a flywheel? It's a fan. A lot of people always tell me, oh, a ported saw's got to run way hotter. They might run hotter, but not always. If this saw cuts at 10,000 stock, or it runs at 10,000 stock, and I poured it and it runs at 15, that fan is literally spinning 5,000 RPM faster. It's going to move more air over the cylinder. Okay? So, these are the things, friends. It's not just timing. It's not just port shapes. It's not ignition advances. It's not all that stuff. It's little things together. Okay? Same thing, one ring or two. Well, I'm going to tell you guys something right now. I run one ring in most of my saws. Some of you have picked up on that. A lot of my saws are single. I run single rings because it creates less drag. Less drag will create a snappier engine. A lighter piston, same thing. Okay? The thing about less drag is less heat. Might be a reason why my home lights haven't blown up yet and they run like scalded cats. Maybe because I do some things to the rings, friends. And that's exactly why my home lights run good. Anyways. Okay, so a single ring can really help you out with heat. You got to keep these things cool. Now, lastly, friends, I don't know if any of you have ever ridden a snowmobile. Snowmobiles run at a pretty consistent RPM because they have a centrifugal clutch on them. The clutch controls the forward movement. But if you pin a sled, it pins and it stays pretty much at the same RPM and you go faster and faster, okay? Much like a chainsaw. Now, dirt bikes are totally different. Dirt bikes have gears. They need torque off the bottom. So dirt bikes often will have crank stuffers, okay? Let's look at a snowmobile. This is a 550 Polaris, and I even picked an air-cooled engine because water-cooled, well, you can push a water-cooled engine harder for longer and make more horsepower with it. Why? Because it's water-cooled. It runs at a consistent temperature. Air cooling has huge fluctuations. And again, that's why I'm not a huge compression junkie for many reasons. One, they're hard to start in the winter here. Two, it gets really hot here. Contrary to what some people think, it gets very hot where I live. It's a weird climate here. I didn't realize how extreme it was until I started talking to more people. More compression, especially in an uncontrolled cylinder like a cylinder with fins. If you have a thermostat, well, you can cool your motor down. You can put a bigger cooling fan on the rad. You can put a better rad. On one of these, you can't do anything. It's just going to get hotter. A hotter engine will make less horsepower. That's just the name of the game. They'll make good horsepower to a point, and then they overheat and they start to lose power. Let's look at a snowmobile engine. Look at the transfers. Look at the flow work. Now, this is a Reed engine, but again, look at the size of the intake. It has an extra intake right here that directly feeds the case. Primary, look at the size of the primary in this saw. Huge primary, smaller secondary, and friends, it even has a boost port. Okay, look at all the airflow and long blowdown. Now, this blowdown is going to be ridiculously long. I believe this is a power valve engine. I might be wrong. But look at that, friends. Even if it's not a power valve engine, I don't think, actually I'm wrong, friends. This is not a power valve engine. I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong out there. This has a pipe on it, though. You can typically run a higher exhaust roof with a pipe. But look, the transfers are almost flush with the bottom of the exhaust. Okay? So, again, friends, you can learn a lot from snowmobiles and dirt bikes. Chainsaws are just one type of two-stroke. But again, these are my thoughts to porting. I'm always learning. Think about this, though, friends. The later your transfers close, the later your transfers open, right? The less suction you get. The less suction you get, less vacuum through your intake. Now, one thing I will say, though, if they are shorter, they close sooner, right? They do close sooner. So you would compress more bottom end, wouldn't you? But I don't agree with that because you're drawing in less air. Why? Less vacuum. So again, friends, try short blowdown, try long blowdown, try medium blowdown. Build the saw that you like. I like long blowdown. Not too long, though. You can go too far. Everything has diminishing returns. The first 80% of power is made in 20% of the time. The last 20% of power is made in 80% of the time. Okay? But all these little things you can do can make a better running saw. Okay, anyhow, friends, I hope you learned something there. Just compelled to make this video. I was watching Harv do that stock timing number 372. I haven't seen it run yet, but I bet that saw runs good. I've done a lot of that stuff. When I originally started porting with a wheel, I did my 365, and I started by hogging out the transfers and adding a little bit of intake timing with a base gasket delete. That saw ran incredible. I got this much gains with this much work. The little bit of gains I got to finish the saw took way more time. And one thing, friends, over intake saws often, and I have a few that are over intake, they're not good work saws. Why? They don't idle. They're very particular idling. This one, friends, I'd like to bring this 630 Super with a 266 top end. That saw has like 160, 162 degrees of total intake timing. It does not idle very well. It sounds like a helicopter. Guys comment, geez, that thing idles kind of fast. And I turn the idle up on that, friends, because it won't idle. The problem with that is it's a chainsaw. The clutch starts to engage. So now you're building a saw that you got to tune all the time. That's hard to get idling nice. That's particular with temperature swings. And now you're modifying a clutch because your clutch is grabbing. Do you guys get what I'm saying? So work saws are not hot saws, and hot saws are not work saws. I like to build a good, reliable work saw that is strong, but not stupid. Because again, stupid injures parts and makes for a saw that's hard to tune. That home light build, friends, that little home light I built for bucking, I'm well known for that saw. That saw is a smile a minute. It's fun to run. It's an orangutan. It's particular. It's hard to tune. Sometimes it can be hard to start. Please don't misjudge what a saw is. That home light is a lot of fun, but that saw needs to be run. You're either on the pipe or off the pipe. It's not a saw that's going to sit there and idle. I built that to just be stupid, and it is, friends. And that saw has one ring, by the way. I've been asked a million times, friends. That saw has one ring. Anyhow, I just want to thank you guys for hanging out. I felt like doing a little porting talk. Think about it. Make yourself a cutaway and think about what the transfers are doing as they open and close. And transfer timing also affects intake velocity, and intake velocity affects everything. So think about it that way, friends. Took me a while to connect the dots, but it's true. But again, study two strokes, grab an old 550 Polaris cylinder, look at the porting in it, friends. This thing has so many ways to move air, it's scary. And looking at it, it is crazy, but that's how sleds are. And I happen to think that chainsaws are way behind the curve when it comes to technology. Also, put a timing wheel on a modern auto-tune saw. Put a timing wheel on an old home light. What do you notice? Friends, I have put a wheel on every saw in here. I understand why the old saws run the way they do, and I understand a lot of times why the new saws run the way they do. It has to do with transfer timing, port shapes, whether they have stuffers or not. All that stuff matters, friends. So the more you study an engine, I think the better you get at it. I've still got lots to learn, friends, but again, I'm going to keep doing these little chats with you. I enjoy it, and I hope you guys are learning something, and learn from anybody. There's so many guys on the internet that are porting. A lot of guys show what they do. Most guys don't, but I have nothing to hide, friends. I do this for fun. This is not my business. I'm not trying to get rich porting. I'm just showing you guys what I do because I love it, and I enjoy when I get a video of somebody running their saw that they ported and it's absolutely murdering wood, and I go, right on. Anyhow, friends, thanks for watching. Take it easy. Later.